Welcome into hour 2 of Fantasy Fest 2025. I am now joined by Derek Brown and by Tera Roberts. We say goodbye to Andrew Erickson. We upgrade, downgrade to D-Bro? What do you think, D-Bro?
It's a definite upgrade, and not because of me, but because of Tera. Okay, Worm? This is how you set up the sound. Nah, love this, man. Love this lineup. Love being here. I've been in the chat sitting here just, talking ball with everybody. I'd love Fantasy Fest Day, man.
Yeah, every time I look off to the side, it's because I'm trying to just catch up with all the chat and see all the hundreds.
Oh, it's rolling, man.
I'm glad you guys are in there because I definitely cannot bring up every question here and answer all these on the show. There's simply not enough time. So shouts to Fitz and Debro and Mayor and Kelly and everybody else who's hanging out in the chat so far. Tera, shouts to you for making the time to join us today.
Thank you for having me. Of course, happy to be back.
Can we set the over/under line at 30 seconds to a minute? Where are we going to set this, Worm, when you bring up the first Ravens player?
I don't think we have a Ravens player today, actually.
Was asking.
Hour of the show. So, do we have any in our player debates? We're talking.
I don't know. I
rather here. I don't believe we have any Ravens. We don't. But if you
see any,
if you want to talk about them, I would be more than happy to, Deeper, because you're the one who brought him up, not me. For the record. Let's go ahead and dive right in. We're gonna do some would you rather's. We've got 4 player debates here. Malik Nabers or Drake London is the first one we have. Starting right off at the top 2, obviously very highly ranked receivers. These guys are both inside the top 10 for both of you. Tera, you have Malik Nabers ranked higher. Debro, you have Drake London ranked higher. Tera, let's start with your side of things. Why do you believe that Nabers is the better pick than Drake London this year?
I do love Drake London, but when I'm looking at pure upside, Malik Nabers takes the cake for me. I believe he has the capabilities to be the true overall wide receiver 1. Yes, we've got the toe injury. That's been an ongoing issue. I'm not concerned about it because it's existing. And then we got the back issue. It sounds like a lot of issues, but you just can't deny the overall upside that he offers, especially when you look at him last year, 170 targets with a literal dumpster fire of a quarterback room. Say what you want about the Giants quarterbacks this year. Russell Wilson is more competent than what they had last year. Jackson Dart has looked sharp. If they get all the way down to Jameis Winston, that's a massive win for us. We would probably see 5 million targets to Malik Nabers. This is just an all-around good scenario here. Only issue that I see is that the Giants schedule is obviously literally the worst in the league. Absolutely terrible. But at the end of the day, volume is volume. And this is a scenario where I expect Malik Nabers to grow and build on what he did last year. And I'm absolutely in love. I struggle to not move him up, if anything.
That's interesting because he's already up at wide receiver 4 for you, at least as of the most recent update that I'm looking at. He is wide receiver 4 overall in ECR, so you are more in line with consensus on this one, Tera. Debro, you're kind of fighting an uphill battle against not only Tera, but also consensus on this one. And I'm curious what you're going to say because setting aside the injury stuff that Tera alluded to with Nabers already, one of the common arguments against Malik Nabers that I've heard is the quarterback situation. But you are a huge Jackson Dart fan. So if he ends up getting to start at some point this season, is that going to hold you back from being excited about Nabers? Because you've basically got it reversed. You've got London all the way up at wide receiver 4 and Nabers down at wide receiver 10, Debro.
Yeah, I think in this realm of the draft, it's splitting hairs, and I do side with London on this. And this is not shade against Nabers. I have him at wide receiver 10, but we have this flipped how Tera and I are looking at it, only because I am worried about, every single highlight from training camp and preseason is Russ throwing go balls. It's throwing moonshots. He's not doing that every single rep. And I'm not telling you that it's not an upgrade going from what they had last year to Russ, but I will also acknowledge that Russ is a very limited quarterback. If the moon balls aren't hitting, you're going to see Russ struggle in a lot of weeks. And are they going to still pump through targets through Nabers? Of course they are. So for me, it's splitting hairs. I am very, very bullish on Jackson Dart, but again, when do we see him? I don't know, because I think that as well as he's played in the preseason, this offensive line is still a huge question mark, and this schedule is terrible. So how much do they want to insulate Jackson Dart from both of those factors throughout the season and say, look, Russ, we brought you in, you're going to start, and you're probably going to take a lot of the punishment because we want to shelter Dart from this. But over to the London side of this, man, I've got him at wide receiver 4. A lot of the same points that Tera talked about. I think he has wide receiver 1 overall upside this season. And for everybody that pushes back against that, look what he did with Michael Penix. I'm not telling you that he's going to get a 39% target share like he did during that small sample, but Darnell Mooney banged up. I'm sorry, we are all and should all be off the Kyle Pitts train. It is what it is. He's going to have a 30% plus target share. He might honestly lead the NFL in both target share and targets overall last year, where people are sleeping on the fact that this dude was third in targets last year. And this was with a broken version of Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins could not throw deep down the field. We know we're getting that with Michael Penix this year. So it's a mishmash of volume, talent, upside. And we know when Atlanta gets in the red zone, they're going to Drake London. So also it's touchdown upside. Like he could score 12 to 15 touchdowns, lead the NFL in targets, and none of this is insane to say about Drake London. And if he does all those things, he will compete with Jamar Chase for the wide receiver 1 overall this year.
I have follow-up questions on this debate, but before I get to them, I just have to point out, because like I've been admiring it really the whole show so far. Shouts to Ethan. This graphic is awesome. The
Dude, they're
graphics
beautiful.
So far in the show
Absolutely
are
beautiful.
amazing. I'm just like very, very impressed. Or whoever, I know Ethan does most of it. I don't know if other people worked on some of them, but they've looked remarkable the whole first hour so far and already into this one. I'm like really blown away by how
our production department is fantastic, man. They've
incredible.
done a banner job on all this. It's awesome.
Nobody's like in my ear telling me to say that. I was just like, while you were talking, my eyes were glazing over. I was like, look at this graphic, man. This looks awesome. So I really like both these guys, obviously. I mean, again, you both have them inside, your top 10 at the position. So it's not like you guys hate either of these two. I'm curious, Tera, you mentioned like Nabers is somebody that you almost want to move up rather than moving down. Where are you taking him overall? Like not just amongst receivers, not just head to head against Drake London, Jamar Chase, Bijan Robinson, CeeDee Lamb, these guys are going ahead of him. At what point in the first round are you saying like, I just want to get Nabers on my team?
So weird thing for me is that I am leaning robust RB this season. I typically don't do that, but if you've got an earlier pick, it's hard to pass up Bijan, Saquon, and Jahmyr Gibbs. After that, it's all fair game at wide receiver. So where I'm taking him, it's mid-round, probably around pick 7 is where I've got him, depending on if anybody makes some weird moves or prioritizes something. Every now and then you've got somebody who jumps Christian McCaffrey up or something like that. But generally around that 6 or 7 range is where I start to look at Malik, and I just want to dive right in.
I'm not saying this is a reason not to draft him. I will point out his bye week is week 14. Last year, I was in a couple leagues that kind of accidentally had the playoff start when bye weeks are still going on because they wanted to get some like double week matchups. So just in case your league has a setting like that, double check it and make sure you're not, making your first round pick a guy who's going to be on bye during the playoffs. That's for down the line, though. Nabers, obviously very good. Debro, same question for you on the London side. Where are you taking him inside the first round?
I think the conversation for him starts probably, I think the first 6 picks for me are all kind of cemented. Looking at Jamar Chase, Bijan Robinson, CeeDee Lamb, Justin Jefferson, Jahmyr Gibbs, and I do believe CMC is 6th overall. So really at the 7th, I think the 7th is where the conversation for me starts about London. I have him 8th overall. I have Genty right ahead of him. So back into the first round. And if that's where you're taking him, looking at ADPs, whether it's best ball, redraft, all that kind of stuff, you're taking in the back end of the first round or top end, like if you have a turn pick, top into the second round, you're going to get a lot of Drake London.
Debra, I think I told you this already, but in the Scott Fish Bowl, which is super flex, so it's a little different, but in that draft, I got London with the 310. It was almost into the 4th round. I was like, this is...
I got him in the 3rd too, man. That 3rd round reversal. Thank you, Scott Fish. It was lovely.
I didn't need the reversal. I waited till the end of the 3rd to get him, and I was very happy with that one. All right, let's go to another receiver pairing here. Tyreek Hill or Davante Adams. Tyreek is wide receiver 14 in ECR. Davante Adams is wide receiver 16. So these guys are really close. Tera, you have Tyreek higher. Debro, you have Davante higher. I'll start with you on this one, Debro. Why do you like Davante Adams so much?
I mean, dude, it's just there's no fall off. I feel like we're getting values on some of these older wide receivers, and I'm not telling you like it's time to send Davante Adams to the glue factory, man. I think he's still got a lot of good football left in him. You look at what he did with the New York Giants last year amongst 79 qualifying wide receivers, 22nd in separation, 27th in route win rate. Dude was on pace for 104 receptions with them as the wide receiver 7 in fantasy points per game. So I don't see any fall off, man. I think the only big question about Adams and where people want to rank him is, what are your thoughts on Matthew Stafford? And also in that convo, if Stafford is out, and right now I am projecting like Stafford to probably miss some games during the season, I'm not that worried if we're going to get that much of a fall off from Jimmy Garoppolo or Stetson Bennett. This is still going to be an offense designed by Sean McVay. We still know where the freaking ball is going. It's going to Puka, and if it's not going to Puka, it's going to Adams. So as a volume bet, as a talent bet, I'm betting on the system and the offense here, I am totally fine taking Davante Adams, even with some of the questions swirling around Matthew Stafford. I would much rather risk it for the biscuit with Davante Adams in that situation than and this is not throwing shade against Tera like with any Tyreek love. Tyreek scares the ever-loving crap out of me this year. Like, I'm worried Miami could be just a total tire fire by week 6.
You were on Davante early, Debro, this offseason, and I was right there with you. Like, you totally, not that I needed much, pushing, but you totally won me over. I'm like, yes, like Davante is a great value. Stafford back stuff, man. Like, nobody ever used to have a bad back. When you have a bad back, you pretty much have it forever. And that's for people who aren't taking violent hits all the time in this, incredibly physical sport and who are already into their late 30s. So that angle is really hard for me to not be nervous about. Setting that aside, if you could promise me health, then yeah, like I think Davante is an insanely good pick this year, honestly. Like I think it all makes sense, but that Stafford stuff is scary. Now, Tyreek, scary, maybe just for other reasons, like his own quarterback obviously has a different kind of, health concern kind of looming over everything. He's also an older wide receiver who's, relying on speed and maybe that doesn't age as well. We'll kind of see. But Tera, you are not scared off. You have Tyreek ranked as wide receiver 12, 5 spots ahead of Davante Adams. So why is this the older receiver that you're going for?
Yeah, we're talking about scary, and I don't fault you, Debro, for being scared of Tyreek Hill. I'm not gonna lie. When he started opening his mouth this offseason, I got a little bit scared too because we want chemistry there. We don't want all of that, chemistry, anti-chemistry yapping going on. But at the end of the day, we're talking about upside, and I love Davante Adams, and I am pro Davante Adams too. I think my lean on Davante Adams is less towards raising him up and actually more towards his impact, maybe downgrading Puka a little bit. That's another story. But when I'm looking at Tyreek Hill and I'm shooting for that ceiling, we are not that far removed from him leading the league in receiving yards. The upside is extremely high. When we look at what he did last year, and his production is definitely tied to the health of Tua Tagovailoa, right? And if we could guarantee Tua would be healthy and good to go for an entire season, he would be somebody that people would probably be looking at consistently in the first round. But since we can't guarantee that, we do get a little bit of a discount on there. But I will say that typically speaking, before last year, if there was one person in the offense that was more Tua proof, it was Tyreek Hill. But when you add in the factors of the wrist injury that he had last season, which was obviously a random thing, not a age regression issue, the legs are still fine. And then you throw on top of that the fact that Mike McDaniel started to get really cute with the offense and wanted to make Jonnu Smith the receptions leader in that offense, which was fun from a fantasy perspective for those of us at tight end, but not super fun for Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, and even sometimes Devon Achane. When you look at his removal there, that's a big factor for me as well, because we are going to get a shift in target share, Tyreek Hill going back. And I actually like all of the Dolphins players as we lose Jonnu Smith in this offense and get back to what this offense was originally. And when I look at him and the upside and opportunity here, it's just so high. And I absolutely love the Dolphins schedule as well. I've always had a problem with Tua in terms of drafting him specifically, because once you get to the end of the season and towards the fantasy playoffs, you get into those cold weather games where they're going to Buffalo and whatnot. And he just can't perform there. They have a beautiful playoff schedule that includes 2 home games against 2 bad defenses in Tampa Bay and Cincinnati. And I can't pass that up. The upside for all of the Dolphins players at that point, if you're in the fantasy playoffs, would be literally league winning upside here. So it's riskier for sure. If you're looking for stability, Davante is definitely the safer pick, but the higher upside swing for me there is definitely going to be Tyreek Hill.
Yeah, I was really out on Tyreek early in the offseason, and I just felt like, again, he's into his 30s now. There's been some injury stuff. There's questions in the offense. There's questions about his quarterback health, and I would just rather go a different direction. That was so much of a consensus opinion, at least on the shows that we were talking about him, that I almost started to feel like, well, maybe we're going too far in the other direction. And Tera, of course, is going, kind of against the grain from that perspective. I find it interesting. So we have this cool, it's called consensus draft sentiment. And on all the player cards, if you look at the rankings on fantasypros.com, it'll kind of highlight just kind of the sentiment, like based on the write-ups and everything, like an overall, an upside, and then a bust, likelihood. And it's a really cool feature that we have. It doesn't mean that I necessarily agree with the assessment on every player, because for Tyreek's, it says that it's a lower upside, and I disagree with that. To me, the scary part of Tyreek is that the bust factor is high and the risk factor is high. The upside, I do think, is also high. To Tera's point, very recently, this guy was like borderline going to set the record for receiving yards in a season. So if things work out well, he will be a value in the mid-third round. I just get scared off. Tera, are you taking him into the second round, or like I'm not sure what the ADP is right now, but the expert consensus rankings is a mid-third round pick?
Yeah, I'm okay with leaning in on the late second round if you want to, especially if you've got one of the picks at the turn there. That makes a lot of sense, because 9 times out of 10, you can look at somebody's roster and try and figure out whether or not they're going to be drafting. So maybe you can, not have to take that earlier pick and get him in the early third. But yeah, once I get to the late second, I'm cool with looking there.
Debra, where are you taking Davante Adams quickly overall?
I've got Adams. Ooh, Adams, where are you at? I've got him. I'm looking at it. 38th overall. So I'm guessing I'm right with consensus, or maybe a shade above it right now with Adams.
Yeah,
I'm right with it. So
okay,
best ball ADP is 38th overall. So I'm kind of with it. And if we get a little more positive news about Adams, I've dropped him a little bit in my ranks, but if we get more positive news, about Stafford, closer we get to week 1, I'll bump him back up a little bit.
See how your choices play out instantly with the Draft Simulator. The Draft Simulator allows you to practice quick and fun, realistic mock drafts based on your league settings in minutes. Sync your league for free and try it today at fantasypros.com/mock, or download the Fantasy Pros app. All right, next head-to-head player matchup here. Kyren Williams or Kenneth Walker. Williams is RB12. Walker is RB15. Tera, you have Kyren at RB12 and Walker at RB16. Debro, you have Walker up at RB10, but Kyren down at RB20. Tera, let's start with you on this one. You don't have them that far apart, but you do have Kyren ahead. Why do you like Kyren better than Ken Walker?
I do. I'm super pro. I sound like I'm pro everybody. I do like Kenneth Walker this season as well.
You got to make choices at some point, right?
Yeah,
you're going to like players. Yeah.
But I lean Kyren Williams on that one, because while I like the potential that Kenneth Walker has, and I like the aggressive ranking from Debro on that because the upside is super high, we're looking at the potential on something we've never seen. With Kyren Williams, we've seen the same thing for multiple years now in a row, and we know the formula for him. We know that they absolutely love him in this offense, and we can get all the running backs drafted in the world, new rookies coming in. At the end of the day, it's Kyren Williams that is getting that aggressive snap count. Anytime they say they want to alleviate it a bit, they don't. They like sending him out there because they trust him. He's just so reliable. Volume is king for him. When we look at him, you don't get the fancy receiving upside, the explosive big plays. You're not going to get that, but you're talking about a guy who just literally dominates in the red zone. Like comparatively, he got 70 carries in the red zone. The next highest guy was Derrick Henry with 53. He just converted. He scored the most fantasy points in the red zone. They trust him on another level. Now, like we were saying with Davante Adams, you do have to be a little bit concerned about what happens to this offense if we don't get Matt Stafford at some point throughout the season because of that lingering back issue. And in that case, you can make the argument either way of, okay, well, they start to lean more and we just get more volume on Kyren, and maybe that makes up for the goal line touches. But at the end of the day, I know what his role is in the offense. I know what he brings. And while he may not be that overall RB1 kind of quality because of the lack of receiving upside that he oddly does not offer in that offense, the guarantee of what you're getting in terms of just such an incredibly trustworthy RB1, that's tough to pass up for me.
Debra, you often are a fan of the kind of backups for the Rams. Specifically, I'm thinking of Jarquez Hunter, just because you say like, hey, this guy's more explosive than Kyren Williams. At a certain point, if we see multiple years of it, do we have to say, doesn't really matter what we think about what the better option is for their running game. Sean McVay is making it clear that he wants to feed this guy, even if we think like he's not explosive enough.
So the holes I'll poke in that is the last 2 years prior to what guy has been there that we should have really been worried about. I was not, and people can go check the receipts. I was not a Blake Corum guy previously. And before then, like, fine, like, yes, we all missed, and I'll take the L on Cam Akers. But I mean, my thing, I look at the Kyren Williams situation very similar to Rachaad White previously with Tampa Bay. He was the guy until a better guy stepped into the room. And I'm not telling you that Kyren still probably doesn't lead this backfield in touches, but why I'm muting him from RB1 level, because he's been an RB1. He was the RB10 last year, but he led the NFL in snap share, opportunity share, all of these different parts or pieces. But now, with the addition of Jarquez Hunter, if he can be the guy that I think he can be this year and offer the big play element, I don't think like we're at the middle of the season, we're at week 7, week 8. I don't think you're going to get Kyren Williams where he's playing 95% of the snaps. I think he's probably going to see his snap share drop. I think you're going to see more Jarquez Hunter. And if that happens, I mean, Tera's point, like how she laid it out and everything, and I'm not saying she's wrong at all, because that's what Kyren's been over the last 2 years. If you don't have pass game upside and utility, and it's all snap share, and it's owning all of the early downs and all of the red zone work, to me, it's a fragile house of cards. If the snap share goes down, depending on how much that looks like, and the red zone usage gets split up at all, then things can come tumbling down very quickly for Kyren if the pass game utility is not there. And we've seen the Rams over the last few years, they're not throwing to the running backs. Whereas you flip the script and it's Kenneth Walker season. I mean, on a per game basis last year, there wasn't much difference between these two guys. Kyren was RB10 in fantasy points per game. Kenneth Walker quietly was RB12 in fantasy points per game. And when he has been healthy, and I know health has been the problem, and that's really been the big problem for him over the last few years, playing a full season, he's been the guy when he's been healthy. Like, as much as we all love Zach Charbonnet and what he's done when Walker's been out of the lineup, when Walker has been in the lineup, he has been the clear guy. And honestly, Coffin nailed all the previous narratives about him coming out as a prospect last year, that he couldn't catch passes, because he was amazing in every per reception metric that you look at last year. He was 3rd in first downs per route run, 6th in targets per route run, 6th in receiving yards per game. And now we have a Kubiak calling plays. And now we have Seattle that has said we are going to lean on our ground game, because we're not going to sit there and depend on Sam Darnold to chuck it 30, 40 times a game. Kenneth Walker, assuming health, and I know it's a big if, but I think that Seattle is taking it easy on him when they can, because he's been in the system. He knows, as far as continuity, I know they're learning a new offense and stuff, but I think there's a comfort level that him missing time in the preseason and in training camp is not a huge detriment to him. They're taking it easy on him for a guy like, this is the time where you take it easy on him. If you are expecting we are going to load him up with a monster workload this year, this is when you do that. So I think it's wheels up for Kenneth Walker, because the pass game utility, the per touch efficiency is there. If we can get the offensive line to not be bottom 5, bottom 10 for Seattle, just give me league average blocking, people. League average. Kenneth Walker's going to smash this year.
Walker, currently being ranked in consensus rankings as the last pick of the 3rd round, is the reason that I love doubling up on receiver in the 1st and 2nd rounds. If you can get like Nico and London or whatever the pair of receivers it is that you come away with, and then turn around and get a guy like Walker in the 3rd, I'm just like such a fan of that this year. Just because of the upside. And I actually do like Kyren too. I think these guys are both appropriately ranked, and I just really like the upside of Walker. Debro, I'm really sorry. We are going to go to this last one. We didn't leave a ton of time for you to talk about your single favorite player in football, but we'll go through it quickly here. Chuba Hubbard versus RJ Harvey. Everybody will be stunned to hear the side that Debro is on. Tera has Chuba Hubbard at RB17 and Harvey at RB22. Debro has Hubbard at RB24 and RJ Harvey at RB12. Is that a typo, Debro, or am I seeing that right? By the way, in ECR, Hubbard is RB18, RJ Harvey is RB23, so about 5 spots apart. Debro, I'll save you here because I know you want to kind of clear the pain and talk about RJ Harvey. Tera, why do you like Chuba Hubbard this year?
I like Chuba Hubbard because, again, I love the stability that he offers there. When we're looking at him, I feel like we look at the Panthers offense, and For some reason, we just make it downgraded in terms of production that can come out of it from these lead role players like McMillan and Chuba Hubbard. And the opportunity and the upside is there because we saw the ascendance of Bryce Young. And we know that this is a system that works from Dave Canales. And we know that Chuba Hubbard is the factual lead back there. And the other backs are cool and stuff, but they're not going to significantly compete in any way, shape, or form with Chuba Hubbard. Last year's volume in terms of the way that he was able to just immediately after 1 week snatch it from Miles Sanders and then grab himself a contract. They love this guy and everything that he offers in the offense. He's a true 3-down back. Well, he wasn't super productive in terms of yardage from his receptions, but receiving work in terms of just pure receptions was up there. Excellent on the ground. He actually surprisingly had 10 touchdowns, which was impressive considering that touchdowns were kind of hard to come by in that Panthers offense here. We should have more goal line opportunities as this offense progresses here. It's just a guy for me that when I'm looking at these kind of guys that are tilting towards the back half of, or kind of towards the back half of the top 20 backs there, Chuba is the one that stands out for me as somebody who you can put out on a week-to-week basis and feel super good about.
D-Bro, I know we don't have a lot of time, but what do you have to say? Well, let me ask you this actually, D-Bro. Is you picking Harvey over Hubbard here because you are just so in love with Harvey, or are you down on Hubbard also?
It's a mix of both of those factors. Everybody know you've been tuning into, off-season content all year. You know my love for Harvey. It's a mix of talent. It's a mix of opportunity. He is the starter in this offense. I don't care about what tweets come out about JK can't find his freaking helmet. That does not matter to me. Harvey's going to catch a crap ton of passes. We know that's what Sean Payton wants to do. And this also does, I have some concerns about Hubbard. We saw in the preseason, Rico Dowdle running just as many routes as Hubbard in the preseason. I think if you look at the totality of his season last year, it wasn't until Miles Sanders was out that he really took off. You could say it's coaching staff loving him. I think we're going to see more of a mixed bag and a mixed backfield from Carolina this year, but I think it's wheels up for Harvey, man. I think people are sleeping on his upside, even as an RB2. I'm putting him as an RB1. He's going to catch a ton of passes, and he's going to be locked inside of a top 5 to 10 scoring offense this year in Denver.
Let's get one Q&A in here because it's RJ Harvey related. RJ Harvey or Travion Henderson for Dynasty? D-Bro, who do you prefer?
So this kind of it's contextual for me, depending on your team. If you are rebuild or looking to win in the next 2 years, it's Travion because of the youth. If you are ready to roll this year, it's Harvey for me.
Tara, do you have a preference here? I mean, obviously Travion having this insanely good, preseason.
Yeah, it's the exact same thing. I mean, in redraft, I love I'm pro Harvey. Surprise, surprise on that one. But in Dynasty, yeah, if you're competing right now, then yeah, RJ Harvey. If you're rebuilding, then you need to grab Henderson.
All right, we'll wrap up there for this segment. Don't go anywhere because we've got Dan Johnson from DraftKings coming up next. Tara, thanks for joining. Enjoy talking to you, and I'm looking forward to working with you more on Fantasy Pros this year.
Of course.